Now that's cute. You think you're in charge here. On a crowded Friday night, two black twin sisters, Danielle and Dominique Carter, were harassed, threatened, and arrested by power-tripping, drunk off-duty cops at a local bar. Mocked for their looks, treated as outsiders, and manhandled in front of silent onlookers. They were paraded as easy prey, women to humiliate, victims with no power to fight back. But the officers never realized who they were cuffing. Before this night, the Carter sisters had survived harder battles, honed by years as FBI agents. The cops thought they were breaking two women. In truth, they were igniting their own downfall. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The bar's usual Friday night chatter died down as Danielle Carter stared directly into Sergeant Rick Dalton's bloodshot eyes. The overhead lights caught the police badge still clipped to his belt, a stark reminder of the power he wielded, even while off duty and drunk. "I said back off," Danielle repeated, her voice steady and firm. She remained seated, but straightened her spine, refusal to be intimidated. Rick's smirk widened as he leaned closer, the smell of whiskey heavy on his breath. "Or what, sweetheart? You gonna make me?" His massive frame towered over their table, casting a shadow across the sisters' faces. Officer Mark Stevens chuckled, a low, ugly sound. He positioned himself behind Dominique's chair, placing his meaty hands on the backrest. "We're just being friendly. Don't they teach manners where you girls come from?" Dominique's fingers tightened around her glass, but her face remained calm. She glanced at Luis behind the bar, who was wiping the same spot over and over. His jaw clenched as he watched the scene unfold. The youngest officer, Kyle Boyd, swayed slightly on his feet. "Check out those curves," he slurred, making an exaggerated hourglass gesture with his hands. "You two must be twins. Double the chocolate. Am I right, Sarge?" Several patrons shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A woman at the bar grabbed her purse and quietly slipped out the door. The music seemed to fade into the background, leaving only the heavy tension in the air. "Last warning," Danielle said, her dark eyes never leaving Rick's face. "Walk away while you still can." Rick grabbed an empty chair from a nearby table, dragging it across the floor with a screech that made everyone wince. He spun it around and straddled it backward, getting uncomfortably close to Danielle. "Now that's cute. You think you're in charge here." He looked over his shoulder at his fellow officers. Ladies seem to have forgotten whose town this is. Mark's hand slid from Dominique's chair to her shoulders. She went completely still, her expression hardening like stone. "Don't touch me," she said quietly, each word precise and measured. "Or what?" Mark squeezed her shoulders. "You gonna call the police?" All three officers burst out laughing at his joke. Louise appeared at their cable, holding a tray of empty glasses as an excuse. "Gentlemen, maybe we should shut it, Louise," Rick snapped without looking at him. "Go back to washing dishes before I decide to check your papers again." Louise's face flushed, but he stood his ground. "Sergeant, I don't want any trouble in my bar." Kyle stumbled forward, bumping the table and sloshing the sisters' drinks. "Then tell these stuck-up Choose your next word very carefully," Dominique cut in, her voice like ice. "Oh, yeah?" Kyle leaned down, putting his face inches from hers. "Or what you gonna do about it, beautiful? Besides, looking like that in those shorts, you're basically asking for attention." Danielle's hand moved toward her purse, but Dominique caught her eye and gave a subtle shake of her head. This wasn't the time. Not yet. Rick noticed the exchange and grinned wider. "Got something in that purse you want to share with the class, princess?" "Just my lipstick, though I doubt it's your shade." Mark's grip tightened on Dominique's shoulders. "You know what your problem is? No respect for authority. But we can fix that, can't we, boys?" A young man at a corner table pulled out his phone, pointing it discreetly at the scene. Kyle noticed and started toward him, but Rick's sharp whistle stopped him. "Later," Rick said, meaningfully. He turned back to Danielle, dropping all pretense of humor. Here's what's going to happen. You two are going to apologize for your attitude, buy us a round of drinks, and maybe if you ask real nice, we'll forget about this little display of disrespect. Danielle took a slow sip of her drink, then set it down deliberately. Here's what's actually going to happen. You're going to take your hands off my sister, step back from our table, and leave us alone. Because right now, you're making a very big mistake. That sounded like a threat, Rick said, his voice dropping dangerously low. Mark, Kyle, did you hear a threat? Sure did, Sarge, Kyle said eagerly. Definitely threatening an officer, Mark agreed, his fingers digging into Dominique's shoulders. Now that's a serious offense. Might have to take you ladies downtown, teach you some manners. The sisters exchanged another look, a lifetime of silent communication passing between them in an instant. The tension in the bar had reached a breaking point, like a rubber band stretched to its limit. The three officers moved in closer, forming a tight circle around the sisters' table. Rick's eyes roamed over their bodies with undisguised hunger, lingering on their legs exposed by their shorts. Would you look at that, Rick drawled, nudging Kyle. Twins really do share everything, even their tasting outfits. Dominique's face remained neutral, but her jaw tightened. She dealt with men like this her entire career, first in community outreach and now at the Bureau. Their kind of power came from making others feel small. Those hips, though, Kyle said, licking his lips. Bet you girls can dance real good. He started swaying his own hips in a crude imitation. Mark chuckled, his breath hot on Danielle's neck. What do you say, ladies? Give us a little show, since you're dressed for it and all. The few remaining patrons studiously avoided looking their way. Louise had disappeared behind the bar, probably calling someone for help. But the sisters knew better than to expect backup in a town where these men ruled. Back up, Danielle warned again, her voice carrying across the now silent bar. You're drunk and you're making fools of yourselves. Rick's face darkened. Making fools of ourselves? He gestured at their outfits. You come in here dressed like that, shaking what your mama gave you, and we're the fools? Our clothes aren't an imitation, Dominique said, quietly but with steel in her voice. And your badge isn't a license to harass women. Harass? Rick's laugh was ugly. Honey, if you didn't want attention... He moved behind Dominique's chair with surprising speed for a drunk man. You wouldn't dress like this. The sound of his hand connecting with Dominique's backside echoed through the bar like a gunshot. His laughter followed, loud and cruel, as Dominique shot up from her chair, her face flushed with fury and humiliation. You son of a... Danielle lunged forward, but Mark was ready. His bulk slammed her against the wall, knocking the wind from her lungs. He pressed his forearm across her collarbone, pinning her in place. What's the matter? Rick taunted, still standing too close to Dominique. Can't take a compliment from an officer of the law? Dominique reached for his hand, but she knocked it away. Touch me again, Dominique said, her voice trembling with rage, or you'll pull back a stump. Kyle giggled, pulling his handcuffs from his belt with an exaggerated flourish. The metal clinked ominously in the tense silence. Ooh, now that's definitely a threat against an officer. Around them, patrons stared into their drinks or at their phones. Shoulders hunched, a middle-aged couple near the door gathered their things and hurried out the door. Nobody wanted to witness what was coming. Nobody wanted to be the next target. Someone's getting awful hostile, Mark said, increasing the pressure on Danielle's chest. Maybe we should take this somewhere more private. Teach you ladies some respect. Danielle struggled against Mark's grip, her training screaming at her to fight back, to protect her sister. But she forced herself still, knowing that one wrong move now could spiral into disaster. Rick moved closer to Dominique, using his height to loom over her. His breath reeked of whiskey and spite as he growled, "Let me explain something real clear. This is my town." He jabbed a finger into her chest. "My streets." Another jab. "My rules." Kyle jangled the handcuffs again, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. And rule number 1 is you don't talk back to cops, especially not when we're being so nice. Mark added, his free hand moving to stroke Danielle's hair. She jerked her head away, and his fingers tangled painfully in her curls. Rick circled Dominique like a shark, his eyes never leaving her body. See, we could have had a real good time, could have shown you girls some real Southern hospitality. His hand shot out, grabbing Dominique's wrist when she tried to step away. But now, you've gone and hurt our feelings. Louise appeared at the edge of the scene, his face pale but determined. Sergeant Dalton, please, they're customers. Did I stutter before, Louise? Rick's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. One more word from you, and Ice will be real